and welcome to day 22 of our Chronological Bible reading. My name's Kenny. I'm a pastor in East Texas, and I appreciate you joining me as we go through the Bible together. Today we're in Genesis 30 and 31. If you haven't read that yet, please stop and read Genesis 30 and 31. It'll take you about 15 minutes and then come back to the video. Today we're going to take a look at a couple of things. We're going to contrast the personalities or the character of Laban and Jacob, and then we're also going to see how God dealt with those two men differently. So let's talk about who Laban is at first. We already know that Laban is a bit deceptive because in previous chapters we know that Laban tricked Jacob into marrying his daughter Leah when Jacob wanted to marry Rachel, the younger of the two daughters. And so Jacob at this point has now worked for 14 years for Laban in order to marry both of these women and be able to, basically in order to marry Rachel, but he wound up with Leah as a wife as well. Now, if you're wondering about polygamy, these are cultural issues from back in that time. It wasn't abnormal at the time to do that, so we can't really transfer our ideas to that far back. And not everything that people do in the Bible are things that we should do. Okay, so we know that Laban is deceptive, and then we see also in this new passage here today that Laban goes to witchcraft for ideas, and for his perspective. So it says that he learned through divination that he was blessed by Jacob's presence. So that's not something that Christians do. That's not something that was a part of the life of people who followed the Lord, followed Yahweh at the time. And so he was doing things that were outside of the norm. We also know that he worshipped other gods because Rachel, during today's reading, Rachel steals the household idols. She takes them with her. Now, Rachel shouldn't have done that. She was taking a piece of home with her. She obviously had grown up in that and had not yet been fully discipled in worshiping Yahweh and letting go of the idol worship, which is typical of all of us. As we come closer to the Lord, we have to let go of things along the way. So we see that Laban now he's a deceptive person. He's into divination, and he's worshiping gods other than Yahweh. He's worshiping idols. We see all of that, and then we see that Laban is willing to deceive in all ways in order to get what he wants. And so toward the end of this passage today, Jacob flees. If you read, then you know that Jacob flees Laban at one point, and Laban catches up with him. And when he catches up, Laban looks at everything that Jacob has and says, "This is all mine. Why did you take it from me?" He says, "The daughters are mine, the grandchildren are mine, the flocks are mine." He claims everything. Laban is a man of low character, and we see that. So let's contrast that with Jacob. Now, Jacob was a man during this time of his life of high character. First, we can look back and see that though Jacob sort of stole Esau's birthright in previous chapters, he didn't really steal it. What Jacob did was ask for it, and Esau gave it to him. What younger brother doesn't want what the older brother has at some point in their life? And so Jacob was just acting normally. He said, "Hey Esau, I'll give you a bowl of soup for your birthright." And Esau says, "Yeah, sure, that's fine." I mean, Jacob was probably surprised in that moment, but Jacob wasn't acting deceptively. So we see that Jacob already has pretty good character. He's not perfect by any means, but he's got pretty good character at his core. And he goes on, and when he gets to Laban to find a wife, and he meets Rachel, he falls in love. He faithfully serves Rachel's father for 14 years in order to marry her. He works hard, and he blesses Laban in spite of Laban changing his wages and Laban being deceptive. He continues in this environment where his boss is deceptive to do well and to be a blessing. Now, that's a good lesson for all Christians in their work area, but that's another story, or in their area of work, so that's a whole other thing to talk about. So we see through Jacob that there's all this faithfulness, and as Jacob is faithful, this story unfolds where God blesses Jacob and literally moves a lot of Laban's wealth that Jacob had built over to Jacob through the breeding of the sheep. Now, if you read the passage, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about here. So what do we see about God? We know that Laban is unfaithful and doesn't worship the Lord, isn't moving in a Godward direction. We see that Jacob is faithful, is serving the Lord, and with all of his imperfection, is moving in a Godward direction. What we see is that God, over time, was faithful to Jacob, in spite of the people that were around him, who were being unfaithful to him. That's a massive lesson for us as believers. The fact that God is faithful, in spite of the negativity, in spite of the evil that may be around us, in spite of those that deceive us, if we will hold true to our character and serve the Lord with gladness in the middle of our circumstances, then he will bless. He will bring us peace. He will restore us. He will bring us joy. And that's what he did for Jacob. And we'll see as we move forward that he continues to do this in Jacob's life. So I hope you've enjoyed today, and love you guys, and continue reading the Bible, and we'll see you on the next video. Thank you and be blessed.